How do you follow up the most successful album of all time? That's the question Michael Jackson faced after the release of Thriller in 1982. Do you just try to go for the same thing, or do you try to capture a different genie in a different bottle? The outcome of this thought was Bad, one of the most successful albums of all time, and although it wasn't more successful than Thriller, no album has ever been, it still accomplished some feats that Thriller never did. Bad saw Michael steer away from the persona that he and his family had cultivated for the last decade and steer in a completely new direction, taking on an edgier look and feel that would stick throughout the rest of his career. So with all that out of the way, let's talk about Bad. After the release of Thriller in 1982, Michael Jackson was constantly thinking about how he was going to follow up such a successful album. And he was going to do it as a complete solo artist, as in 1984, to the surprise of the rest of his brothers, Jackson had stated that he was no longer going to tour with the rest of the Jackson 5, and he was effectively going to leave the band. Jackson was always trying to find the next and the newest sound, and always tried to find ways to reinvent himself. Bad was just one of the first times that he truly reinvented himself, and it stuck. Early work on the album started in 1983, but the true work didn't start until 1985, as Michael and Quincy got the band back together one final time to give us something truly special. Songs like Smooth Criminal were conceived around this time period, and there are actually demos that exist from around 1985 that show Smooth Criminal in the state that it started out with, so you can actually see the origins of this song. Take a listen. The studio, as one would think, was extremely busy during the recording and the producing of Bad, and in a 2017 interview with Rolling Stone, Quincy Jones actually gave us an inside look about just how chaotic the Bad sessions truly were. I loved it every time we went in the studio, and that was a lot. We used to stay up 5 days and nights with no sleep when we were on a roll. They were carrying second engineers out on stretchers. I was smoking 180 cigarettes a day. I don't smoke anymore. Work on the album continued all the way up until July of 1987, and 60 songs were conceived for this album, and 35 of those were actually recorded by Jackson. At that point in time, there was so much material available that Michael wanted a 3-sided LP for Bad, but Quincy, they convinced him to keep it one, otherwise it would just be too expensive. It's kind of funny looking at that in hindsight, because albums that Michael created after Quincy Jones, such as History and Invincible, would go down as some of the most expensive albums in the history of the world to make, both of them costing over $30 million, and I believe that Invincible holds the title for the most expensive album of all time. There were 2 cover shoots for Bad, but the one that we know and love today came from photographer Sam Emerson, catching that iconic look and leather jacket that personified the Bad era. As Michael always did, music videos were some of the centerpieces for the album. From Bad, The Way You Make Me Feel, and Smooth Criminal, a lot of the songs from this album have some of the most iconic music videos in Jackson's entire career. Jackson was so popular at this point in his career that Oscar-winning director Martin Scorsese signed on to direct the Bad short film, which is around an 18-minute long music video for Bad. Scorsese was intrigued by Michael Jackson's vision and his choreography, and it's safe to say that it was a match made in heaven. Another fun fact is that Prince was actually supposed to feature on the title track Bad, but he declined for reasons, I guess. You can watch this video where he explains.
Well, you know, that Wesley Snipes character, that would have been me. All right, now you run that video in your mind. The first line of that song is "Your butt is mine." Now I said, who gonna sing that to whom? Cause you sure ain't singing it to me. And I sure ain't singing it to you. So right there we got a problem.
When Bad did release, it had immediate success right out the gate. It sold over 2 million copies first week domestically and sold over 7 million copies worldwide, making it the fastest selling album worldwide ever, as Michael Mania reached outside the US and came across the globe. One of the things that I foreshadowed earlier in the video was that Bad did some things that Thriller did not. One of those things was the fact that Bad had 5 #1 hits on the album. Bad, the title track, The Way You Make Me Feel, I Can't Stop Loving You, Dirty Diana, and Man in the Mirror all reached #1 on the Billboard charts, just an incredible feat. Despite the 5 number ones, Bad was actually kind of seen as a disappointment at the time because it didn't live up to the success of Thriller. Obviously, looking back at hindsight, that's just a laughable take, as Bad is one of the best-selling albums of all time, but it's funny nonetheless. That really just shows you how much pressure was on Jackson at this point in his career. Bad has sold 35 million copies worldwide, was nominated for 6 Grammys and somehow didn't win a single one, and is also certified 11 times platinum. Also, a little fun fact is the last track on the album, Leave Me Alone, was originally not supposed to be on the album, and on the CD version of the project, it's classified as a bonus track. I also have to point out, because this song doesn't get that much attention, as there are 5 #1 hits on this album, Liberian Girl is one of the most underrated songs in Jackson's entire discography. Bad saw Michael Jackson reinvent himself in a new light once again, and once again take the entire world on by storm. It served as the last track in a legendary 3-album run between Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones. Both Mike and Quincy showed us one last time what can happen when you put those 2 legends in the same studio. Thank you all for taking the time out of your day to watch this video. It is always greatly appreciated. I know I've been on a little bit of a Michael Jackson run lately, but I had gotten to, I believe it was Dangerous as my last video, and I realized so far on this channel, I've covered every single Michael Jackson album except for Bad and Thriller, so I figured I'd finish them off. Thank you for watching, as always. Greatly appreciated. If you want to follow me in any of my socials, the links to those are down in the description. With all that out of the way, I will see you on the flip side.